G'day and welcome everyone to the fourth and final GameDay Squad Global Cricket Championship show for 2024. We are the Fantasy Bros. I'm Moi Mou and that's Kwozzie.
G'day.
Kwozzie, welcome mate.
Thanks mate.
So now that the tournament's finished, how did Easy Peasy finish?
Yeah mate, I was a bit nervous there the last few games. I held on to 10th in the champion. Obviously I would have loved to be a bit higher, but 10th I'm pretty happy with. And then 21st in Challenger, I sort of didn't focus a whole lot on Challenger or Classic, focused most of my time on Champion. So yeah, pretty happy with that 10th. But I think the elephant in the room is where you finished up, mate. How did the Sandpaper Squad do?
First of all, congratulations on 10th, mate. I know you were working hard to finish in that top 10. It's always good to finish in that bracket, and you managed to just get in there at the very end, so well done. Yeah, look, I had a bit of success winning the Challenger comp, so finishing first place ahead of some teams that I surged past in the last couple of rounds, which I was pretty stoked about. Shout out Kermie, who was one of those people who were super close and in front for quite a long duration of that tournament. But I also finished third in the Champion comp, and fifth in Classic was pretty nice as well. So I managed to put a lot of my bronze cards into that Classic competition. But it was tough balancing the three competitions or even the four competitions, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah. Definitely something that takes a bit of time and like we said at probably the start of the tournament, you got to set those alarms, and it's probably even more important now. You've got potentially four competitions you're focusing on. So yeah, the balance there is really important, I think. And I think, based on those results, I think you did that really well, mate. Really well done.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I think we should also shout out the winner of the starter comp. That was Ayush Khanna, 6846. Well done, Ayush. Such as Fife won the Classic competition, and the GDS GOAT Fez Monkeys took out the Champion comp by like 1,000 points. Yeah, so well done, Fez. You're the man to beat, I think. I think there are a few people calling out for him to sit the next tournament out. So we'll see if he listens to that advice from the public and give everyone else a chance. Alrighty, well, let's get cracking. In today's show, we're going to review what happened in the Super 8s, the semi-finals and the big final. We'll review the top GDS scorers in each position, and we'll announce the squad of the tournament based on overall points scored. As always, we'll announce that Down Showdown winner and see which one of you have won yourself your very own GDS Global Cricket Championship pack. And to finish, we'll briefly preview some of the upcoming GDS cricket competitions, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Well, let's get into it and dive into how the tournament unfolded following the group stage. Kwozzie, what happened in Group 1 of the Super 8s?
All right, Group 1 of the Super 8s, it was made up of India, Australia and Bangladesh and Afghanistan. And I said on a previous show that I thought it would be a tough road ahead for both Bangladesh and Afghanistan. However, I was very wrong, and we'll get into that in a moment. First up, we had India, though, and their path to the final started with Afghanistan. And although Afghanistan tried really hard in that game, the total of 181 set by India was just too much to chase down. And it was mostly thanks to the bowling of Arshdeep Singh and Jasprit Bumrah. Arshdeep really burst on the scene the last few games, and it was awesome to see. However, it was that player Bumrah who really topped the scoring there thanks to his 20 dot balls in that game, along with 3 wickets in his 4 overs. He amassed a score just shy of a ton, 99 GDS points. So once again, rewarded everyone for playing Bumrah. And then from there, India continued that dominance in their run to the finals, cruising past both Bangladesh and unfortunately Australia as well. And then Afghanistan, they were the real surprise packet, I thought, from Group 1. We obviously saw their dominance through the early rounds, and they continued that form. Obviously, going down early to India wasn't the ideal start, but it didn't deter them from that ultimate goal of hopefully that World Cup victory. And they came back firing, and unfortunately, as I said, for Australia, they bore the brunt of that fire. The thought of Maxi scoring a double century was well past the Afghanistan team. They didn't even think of it once. I'm sure they did not mention it at all. And they came out firing in that first wicket partnership of 118, which set the tone. However, once Gurbaz and Zadran fell, there wasn't much left in the tank. And I reckon they might have felt a little bit nervous there in some of those patches, but it was enough, 148, and they got the job done. And it was mainly down to the quicks. So both Naveen and Naib really dominated that contest with the ball. And the latter, Naib taking 4 wickets from 4 overs, which I think it was probably his first big score for the tournament. So it was good on him for standing up. And I think that's the first time he might have even bowled all 4 overs. So unreal performance there. And he scored 107 GDS points. So anyone that took the risk and played Naib, I'm sure they would have been pretty happy with that. And that win against Australia meant that Afghanistan just had to beat Bangladesh in the final match of the Super 8s, and they'd find themselves into a World Cup semi, which, as we know, that did happen, unfortunately, for many GDS coaches and Australian fans. Across the Group 1 of the Super 8s, the best batting performance was actually Rohit Sharma. He knocked 92 off 41 balls against Australia. So it was a massive 131 GDS points, which are absolutely unreal. For the all-rounders, it was Rashid Khan that top scored across all Group 1 games, and true to his all-rounder position, he racked up points both with the bat and with the ball, so 25 points with the bat and then 96 with the ball, so an unreal total of 121 against Bangladesh. And as I said, his performance then ensured that Afghanistan would secure that finals berth. And then the bowling performance across the Group 1 Super 8 stage again came down in that showdown against Bangladesh and Afghanistan. It was Naveen joining as captain, taking 4 wickets in his allotted overs, ensuring he scored an even ton in GDS points. And as I said, saw his team through to the semi-finals. It was an absolute action-packed Group 1. But how did the other side fare in Group 2?
Yeah, action-packed indeed. Before I get into Group 2, just want to mention briefly that final match between Afghanistan and Bangladesh and how there were still 3 teams able to make that semi-final, even with about 4 or 5 overs remaining. I know the Aussies were in their hotel room watching the weather, watching that match until well after midnight. Bangladesh was still a live chance to get through if they won. They probably had until, I think, the 12th over to reach that target for them to get through. They didn't get there, so then it came down to Australia was still a chance. The rain came in a couple of times. Gulbuddin Naib's hamstring went to try to save a bit of time and get the umpires to get them off the field. It was just a crazy last match. And the poor Aussies, though, were the ones to miss out. But well done, Afghanistan. They had a great tournament and probably deserved to get there.
I think
that was Group 1.
I think that video of Naib going down in the almost in the rain as the coach is waving on the field pointing to the skies. I think that might be a bit of history there that's been made, and I think that video will be circulating forever. Loved it.
Absolutely. And then the selfie that he posted with his physio after it, saying, shout out to this guy, he's a great physio, etc. It was hilarious. Was great to watch. So Group 2 of the Super 8s consisted of the co-hosts USA and the West Indies, as well as South Africa and England. It was great seeing that associate nation in the US proceed to this stage of the tournament and hopefully put the sport on the map a little bit and get a few more of the Americans tuning into future tournaments. Look, they're a bit out of their depth here, unfortunately. They lost all 3 matches, and 2 of them quite convincingly, but I suppose that was to be expected. And their biggest performances obviously came in that group stage, and that sent Pakistan home early as well, which was a big surprise. Their best result was against South Africa in their opener of the Super 8s, where they, despite chasing 195, so a really big score, they fell just 19 runs short. And that chase was highlighted by a superb 80 not out by their opening keeper batsman, Andre Gauss. South Africa would go on to top their group, and they had another couple of close matches. They only beat England by 7 runs. And I think they won by about 3 wickets with just 5 balls remaining against the West Indies in a match that was heavily rain affected as well. So the South Africa got their victories, but none of them were convincing. And the English and the West Indies put the USA to bed as well in far more convincing fashion than South Africa. So although they won their three Super 8 matches, they probably didn't look the most convincing of the group. But given they won all their three matches, that meant it effectively came down to that England versus West Indies match, and that would determine who would advance to the knockout stages. In that match, England elected to bowl first, and the West Indies made a pretty competitive 4 for 180, but that was never enough on a pitch that really suited the batsmen, and you can probably tell by the fact that the West Indies only lost 4 wickets. They probably needed to go a little bit harder through the middle and the end, and if you're putting up 180 but only losing 4, you probably left a little bit in the sheds. And that proved to be the deciding factor. And England, cruised to victory with 15 balls remaining. And it was really Phil Salt's 87 off 47, which got them home. He scored 7 fours and 5 sixes in that knock, but they were comfortable throughout. And that meant the end of the West Indies, unfortunately. So the best performing batsman in that group was that man, Phil Salt. His 87 not out earned him 120 GDS points. The top scoring all-rounder in Group 2 of the Super 8s was the West Indies' Roston Chase, who scored 141 in their close loss to South Africa. His 52 off the bat and 3 for 12 from 3 overs wasn't enough to see them home and through to the semi-finals. The best bowling performance came from Englishman Chris Jordan. He took an incredible 4 wickets in that final over against the US, including a hat-trick from the final 3 balls to finish with figures of 4 for 10 and 94 GDS points. He was certainly in my side, and I got up to watch that game, and I was fist pumping when he got given the ball in that 20th over, and he did far greater than expectations, claiming 4 in 5 balls. So from that group, South Africa advanced to the semi-finals in first place with England in second, with the tournament co-hosts USA and the West Indies both eliminated. This meant a tantalising semi-final matchup of South Africa and Afghanistan, while it would be between India and England for the other spot in the final. So, Kwozzie, tell us, did Afghanistan's fairy tale run continue, or did South Africa prove too strong in that first semi-final?
Yeah, mate, where do we even start with this match? Like we spoke about, the world beaters Afghanistan against, a South Africa that you mentioned that struggled their way through, bits of that Super 8s. But I still feel like they had that confidence and were, primed for probably a big performance. And we kind of saw that in this match. Coming into the match, though, I thought Afghanistan probably had the momentum on their side coming in. And I feel like they probably felt that too, and that they could see themselves in a World Cup final. But Rashid came out, won the toss. However, that was about the only thing that Rashid and Afghanistan got right in that game. Khan opted to bat, and unfortunately, we'll never know for sure if he opted to bowl. Who knows? But unfortunately, that batting brilliance that we've talked about throughout the whole tournament of Afghanistan's top order, they just didn't turn up, and South Africa really dominated with the ball. They bowled Afghanistan out for 56 runs in only 12 overs. So, just a complete shambles from Afghanistan, unfortunately. And then the South African batsmen came in and made quick work of that 56, obviously. And I think they only lost 1 in that run chase. As mentioned, it was the bowlers, though, that did all the damage. And it was Shamsi, Rabada, Jansen, Nortje, they all contributed and rewarded coaches with some precious GDS points as well in a game that really didn't have a lot on offer. It was that Marco Jansen that was the pick of the bowlers there. He took 3 wickets in 3 overs, as well as 13 dot balls, and he totaled 73 GDS points. So I think anyone that took the punt on Jansen, I saw a few trades happening, and someone picked up a Jansen Platt for a decent price, and I saw in the Discord he was hoping that would be a game winner for him. So I hope that worked out. What about that second semi-final, mate? How did India fare against England?
Yeah, mate. Just before I get to that, really quickly on that Afghanistan loss, I feel like the writing was in the wall after that Bangladesh game. You know, all that emotion from that victory is a late finish. You know, they were looking like they weren't going to get through, and just how excited and how stoked they were to have earned themselves in a semi-final. You could see that emotion on their faces. They'd achieved something that no one thought possible. So I think that probably just took a lot out of them, and South Africa really capitalised. But yeah, their bowling attack was just unreal in that match.
And probably on that, it's the schedule as well. Like you look at that Super 8s leading into the semi, like they're playing so many games in such a short space of time. So, you're probably right. The absolute elation of making that semi-final and the work that they did to get there, and then, obviously all too much for them.
Yeah, they'll be proud either way. Alrighty, so all that stood between India and their shot at their first world title in 11 years were defending champions England, who looked all but gone numerous times throughout this tournament. Like, we wouldn't have been surprised if they didn't even make it to the Super 8s, given, some of their shaky performances, some of the rain affected matches that they were involved in. Their loss to Australia. But look, here they were with one match against India to make it through. And we had another probably 2-hour delay in this one as well. And I know for one that I loaded up my team on South Africa and Afghanistan players just in case this match didn't go ahead, because there was that massive downpour earlier, and there wasn't a backup day for this match. There was 250 extra minutes, so it could be delayed that long. But they had no replacement day. They had a replacement day for the previous semi-final if that one was rained out, but not this one. So, like you said, the scheduling was all over the place. But hey, as long as it suited India, then we shouldn't be complaining, should we? Alrighty, so that 2-hour delay eventually meant the covers came off and we got a match. And England won that toss and they decided to bowl first. I think they thought the conditions might suit their quicks with the ball maybe swinging around a bit early. They weren't quite sure what the deck would do, so they wanted to see what score they could chase down. And it looked like a pretty good decision early on as well, where they had Virat Kohli and Rishabh Pant out for both 9 and 4. So they were well on top. But it was Rohit Sharma and Surya Kumar Yadav that dug India out of a pretty deep hole and hit them out of trouble. Rohit's captain's knock of 57 off 37 included 6 4s and 2 6s, and he helped India post a really respectable 7 for 171. For England, Chris Jordan was the pick of the bowlers. He claimed 3 wickets on his way to 77 GDS points. But in reply, England never really looked likely, and they were knocked over for just 103, and only 4 of their batsmen managed to reach double figures. It was the spinners from India of Axar Patel and Kuldeep Yadav who did a lot of the damage, and they claimed 3 wickets each, but Kuldeep top scored with 91 GDS points.
Yeah, it was an unreal performance. Really good, really dominant there from India, and they deserved that grand final spot.
Absolutely. So now for the big one, the final, the match between South Africa and India. Kwozzie, who were the victors and who was the man that top scored for that winning side?
And what a grand final it was. 2 absolute heavyweights in T20 cricket. And, we've seen some absolute dominance from India in the past, and we've seen South Africa and a lot of their players really stand up across all T20 comps around the world. So a really great matchup, and a really big matchup for probably both countries as well. As you said, that this tournament was probably scheduled and almost handpicked for India, and anything that could be done to make sure India was there at the end, it was. But obviously they still had to perform, and it didn't start well in that final for India. They lost 3 of their top batsmen after only amassing 34 runs. So I think they would have been a bit nervous. And considering those 3 of Sharma, Pant and Yadav were averaging 32, 21 and 24 runs respectively throughout the tournament, I think they needed something special, and surprise, surprise, it was the man of the moment, Virat Kohli. He finally delivered for both India and for GS coaches. Obviously in those couple of late Super 8s and then the semi-final. He had some decent totals, but this time he was back to his best. And I think I said on last week's show that he would be a massive watch early on in that Super 8s to see how he did perform and whether he could improve on that 4 or 9 average that he had at one point in the tournament. And obviously he did that when it mattered most. And he came away with 94 GDS points, and it came about with 76 runs, 6 fours, 2 sixes, and then that 50 run bonus as well. So no doubt any coach who took the risk putting him in for that game, they were probably rewarded with a top 5 finish in that grand final. And I mean, you look at what he did to get the Indians out of trouble there. His partnership with Patel and then with Dube ensured South Africa would be chasing a decent total to secure that World Cup.
Yeah, and well done to India. And finally, Kohli got some runs on the board in the one match it really counted. Everyone else chipped in and he didn't need to, but when they all failed, he stood up, and that's why he's one of the greats of the game. Mate, South Africa will probably reflect on this one and wonder how it all went wrong. And they were seemingly cruising to victory. They needed just 30 runs from 30 balls with 6 wickets in the shed. Anyone would think that's pretty comfortable. They probably put it to bed in the second last over so they didn't have to go through the nerves of trying to get those last few runs in the final over. But that match completely turned in that 16th over when Hardik Pandya dismissed Henrik Klaasen. And it was a really, really straightforward wicket. Like it was a bit of a nothing shot. He was well on top of the bowling. He'd just smashed 52 from 27. And it was just a little edge behind, and that completely turned that whole innings. From there, the South Africa batting never recovered, and incredibly, that 30 from 30 soon became 16 off 6.
Which can still be done. Let's be honest, in a T20 game, that can still be done.
Oh, absolutely. But from 30 off 30 to 6, how did that all go wrong with still plenty of wickets in that middle order? It was that man again, Pandya. He was cool under pressure. He bowled 2 or 3 overs in that space, and he took 2 more wickets in the final over, and he ensured victory to the Indians by 7 runs. But like I said, South Africa must be wondering how it all went wrong, and they were so close to getting their hands on that trophy. But I guess they're probably not going to get rid of that choker tag, which is, we remember what happened in way back in 99. And this is one that they probably were already cleaning out the trophy cabinet for, with those 4 or 5 overs remaining.
Tough way to go. Tough way to lose a grand final for sure. But I mean, if you can't win off 30 from 30, you're struggling, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Alrighty. It's time now to find out who the best Game Day Squad scorers were for each position, and then we'll announce the Game Day Squad team of the tournament. So for each position, we'll rank the top 3 players based on pure averages only, but for the squad of the tournament, we'll base that on total points accrued throughout the entirety of the tournament. So, Kwozzie, who are our top 3 wicket keepers based on averages for 2024?
Yep, so number 3, we had Nicholas Perrant from the West Indies, and he was averaging 50.4. So we saw early on he had some really dominant performances, and he was able to take a few catches behind the stumps as well, which always helps that average climb a bit. In second, we had who I picked as the wicket keeper of the tournament, Jos Buttler from England, and he averaged 52.3. But it was the Afghanistan Gurbaz who, unfortunately, we know what happened at the end there, but he had a really dominant performance early on in the tournament, and he still averaged 56 throughout the tournament. So really, really awesome performance there. And I think he'll be taking some confidence in to the next tournament that we'll talk about a little bit later. Who were the top 3 batsmen across the tournament, mate?
Yeah, we had in third highest average on 46 points per match was actually Kushal Bertel from Nepal. So well done to him, chiming in with a couple of catches behind and plenty of runs at the top of the order as well. Rohit Sharma averaged 46.9 and played the most matches, out of anyone. So 46.9 is great. But number 1 was our man Travis Head from Australia. He averaged 48.1 ahead of Rohit Sharma's 46.9. What about the all-rounders, mate? Did Maxi find his way in the top 3 at all?
No, he did not, and we probably should have predicted it. But Instead, we had in third place on 66 average was Hardik Pandya. So your man that you spoke about at the end there, that the heroics, he had an unreal tournament, and yeah, I think he picked up a wicket or two in almost every one of his matches. So he did really well. In second, we had the Australian Marcus Stoinis. He had an average of 66.3, and I think he had the highest score across the whole tournament as well in one of those early matches, 163, I think he scored. So it was an unreal performance there. Wow. And then a number one for the all-rounders, I'm going to say he's your mate because I think he won you a competition early on, and that's Brandon McMullen from Scotland. He averaged 67 GDS points. It was across only 3 games, but unreal performance there from the Scottish player, and that's probably someone you keep an eye on for the future as well. And then finally, mate, who top scored for the bowlers?
Yeah, you'll like this one, mate. I know New Zealand didn't win a lot this tournament, but they feature quite heavily in the top bowling averages. And I think that mostly comes down to the demolition of both Papua New Guinea and Uganda, where they rolled those sides for, I think, just less than 60. And the quick bowlers just absolutely feasted on both of these sides. Remember, the Kiwis didn't make the knockout stage either, or the Super 8s. So their matches were only limited as well. But the third best bowling average was Tim Southey's 69 points. Lockie Ferguson from New Zealand averaged 71.3, but the bowler with the highest average was Trent Boult. He averaged 72.3 across his matches as well.
It's good to see we won something.
Gotta look at the positives.
That's right.
So the squad of the tournament now, and we'll base this off total GDS points scored. So this will generally favour the players that went deep, but obviously they're the reasons why their players went deep into the tournament. So this is total points scored throughout the entirety of the tournament. The top performing wicketkeeper was Gobaz from Afghanistan, so both the top average and the total points, so well done to him. And the 3 best batsmen were Rohit Sharma and Surya Kumar Yadav, both from India, and Travis Head was in there as well as the top 3 batsmen in the tournament. What about the bowling and all-rounder positions, mate?
Yeah, again, like you said, first up we have Hardik Pandya from India. Obviously went deep in the tournament, had a really good average, but then also had the top score for the all-rounders. Closely followed by Rashid Khan. We spoke about him at the start of the tournament to be one of the key players for Afghanistan, and he really stood up near the end there and took some key wickets. Next up, Marcus Stoinis. He featured there in the average and also in the top scores. Obviously, that 163, as I said, helped that along. And then to round out the all-rounders, it was Andre Russell. Again, another dominant performance there in quite a number of games. He's probably a little bit disappointed he didn't get more with the bat, but I think across all of the matches, again, he took 1 or 2 wickets there in most of his matches. So he did really well to finish across the 4 all-rounders. And then the bowlers, it was the guy I spoke about earlier, Arshdeep Singh. The back 3 or 4 games that he played, I think he took 3, 4, 3, something like that. It was ridiculous, his performance, and he was unreal, and probably, assisted India to victory there. Closely followed was Jasprit Bumrah, again from India. They went deep, and he was a star the whole tournament. And then your man, my man, I don't know. We're both, we don't want to talk about him, but the Afghanistan quick Faruqi, he dominated early, and he was able to pick up the 3rd best top score for the bowlers. So good on Faruqi. Well done.
I just had a thought. I know we're going to talk briefly about the Australian cricket comp a little bit later, but is there a chance Faruqi can find his way over to Australia for that tournament later on this year? I hope not, because he still gives me nightmares based on what we said about him earlier on in the tournament. But if he does arrive on our shores, he'll definitely find a spot in my side. I backed against him too often, but he was just unreal, wasn't he? Yeah. And just looking at that team, it's no surprise to see all of the Indians in that team. What are there, about 5 Indians? But they played South Africa in the final, and there was not one South African in that team of the tournament. So that tells me a couple of things. I reckon maybe it's because they each shared the load, and it was a really well-rounded team performance where there wasn't really one standout that got them through every match, and they did well with both bat and ball, and equally shared the responsibility. But also it tells me that they weren't super impressive throughout the tournament. They got the job done when they needed to get it done. It wasn't always pretty, but yeah, that team performance meant that they could clutch up those last few, whether it was some runs that they needed or preventing some runs. But yeah, I thought that was a surprise to see no South Africans in that team.
And they're not really even that close to being near the top scorers either. I would have thought maybe Quinton de Kock might have been up there. He had some really good matches early on, but no, you look at the top scorers and he's well down the list. So yeah, crazy.
Alrighty, and now on to the Down Showdown, where both Kwozzie and I pick our best bat, all-rounder and bowler for the previous round. And that round that we chose our players for were the Super 8s and the semi-final and final. So on last week's show, Kwozzie selected Travis Head, Hardik Pandya and Alzarri Joseph as his 3, and I went with Virat Kohli, Andre Russell and Jofra Archer. So first up, the batsmen. My Virat Kohli had scores of 52, 56, -2, 11, and then that big one of 94 in the final. Head had scores of 42, -2, but then he finished with a massive 101 against India, which sees Kwozzie take the lead 1-0, just ahead of Kohli's 94. For the all-rounders, that meant we had Hardik Pandya versus Andre Russell. Pandya scored 92, 47, 29 and 77 in that final. And Russell had scores of 21, 74 and 71, which wasn't enough for me to even it up. So that's 2-0 to Kwozzie. But can he claim a clean sweep? Bowlers were Alzarri Joseph versus my Jofra Archer. Joseph had scores of 2, 47 and 69, whereas Archer had scores of 31, 74, 12 and 53. So thankfully, that 74 was just enough to outscore Joseph, and I came home with something. But that means Kwozzie wins the Down Showdown 2-1. Well done, mate.
Thank you. I think that was maybe my best performance yet. And I was close to that clean sweep, and I would have loved that, but that's okay. All right, so we are now going to find out who is our final Down Showdown winner. Now, usually we do a live opening for the winner. However, obviously, at the end of the tournament, no point opening a pack yet. We should save that for the next tournament that we'll talk about in a moment. So instead, the winner, once we spin that wheel, we will send you a pack code, which you can claim, and then you can hold on to that until the next tournament. And hopefully that brings you some joy and some dominance in that next tournament. So let's have a look. So remember, anyone that voted for me as the winner, you are in the draw. And let's spin the wheel and find out who, in fact, is taking that prize. Alrighty, let's go.
Good luck, everyone.
Alrighty, the Twitch It from YouTube. Congratulations, mate. If you can get in contact with us either on the GameDay Squad Discord or on our Instagram at FantasyBrosAU, we will be able to send that pack code out to you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. You've been rewarded with a 3-player unique pack. Well done, mate.
Yeah, congratulations, Twitch It. Well, I think I've seen you on the Discord server as well under a similar name. So make sure you get in contact with one of us, and you can claim that before the next tournament. And again, thanks to everyone else who voted by commenting on that video last week, or on our Instagram or the GDS Discord server. It was great seeing some of you get involved and enjoying those predictions. Something a little bit more to look forward to in case you weren't playing some of those players in your games. You could still cheer for them if you chose them. So look out for that Down Showdown to continue in some future cricket tournaments for sure. And just on that, I think it's just about it for today's show. But I'm sure myself and like many of you, probably had that sinking feeling over the last couple of days, realising that the Global Cricket Championship tournament has now concluded. But fear not, we're going to bring you some news of the two next up-and-coming cricket tournaments that are just around the corner that might be able to fill the void for you between those rugby league and Aussie rules off-seasons. So, Kwozzie, can you tell us a little bit about what to expect with the upcoming Australian cricket tournament?
Yeah, definitely. So Oz Cricket, it kicks off on the 4th of December and then runs through to the 21st of January. And there's a few minor changes to the way the tournament's run. The season's going to be reduced from 61 games down to 43. I think, looking back at last season, it was a little bit longer, and probably near the end of the season, there was a bit of fatigue there from viewers and from players probably as well. So it's good to see they've reduced that. Cricket Australia have also made a massive announcement, which I'm really excited for. It's going to allow a lot of those test stars, particularly in the Australian team, to be available throughout most of January. So I think their last commitment, I think the last day might be the 7th of January. So they're basically released back to the teams that they're playing for, and we might be able to see them feature, particularly in our GDS teams. That'll be unreal. Although we're a fair way, from the kickoff of the tournament, there's still the draft coming up, and there's been some massive signing news already. So some notable ins. The big one, I think, for me and you and a number of from others from Brisbane is Colin Munro has re-signed with the Heat. So that's great news. Really pumped to see him go again. And, he's a really good top order batsman, being a Kiwi as well. I've followed him quite a bit, and he is the first pick in my team every time. Also, the duo of Stoinis and Maxi have re-signed for the Stars as well. And the Stars have been, toiling away in the back office there. They've made some good signings. They've actually picked up Tom Curran. So nice. He's moving over to the Stars as well. So I think that's a big in for them. And that is a great little group of all-rounders to get your team started. I'm really looking forward to the Stars this year. They've had some horrible seasons. So let's hope that they can stand up and perform for them, for their fans, as well as GDS coaches. Some notable outs. So at the end of last season, we saw Aaron Finch, retire. And then along with him, his Gades top order batsman, Sean Marsh, also retired. So the Gades will be a little bit light at the top order there. They do obviously have Jake Fraser-McGurk, who is unreal. And then they've picked up Josh Brown from the Heat as well. And we saw Josh Brown have some absolute enormous scores, and he can hit the ball a mile. So I think potentially, he'll be the top order replacement there at the Gades. And then also other retirements, Nick Larkin has retired as well. And then Steve O'Keefe, obviously we saw some massive performances at the end of the season there for SOC. He's also retired, which is fair enough. He's been around a long time, but good on him for continuing. He looked like he was unstoppable. And then a couple of players off contract. It doesn't mean that they're not coming back. It just means that there's no official signing yet. So keep your eyes peeled. Alex Carey, Travis Head, Chris Lynn, Marnus Labuschagne, AJ Tye, Steve Smith and David Warner. Some really massive names there. They're all off contract at the moment. So, look, I assume that their respective teams will re-sign them, but who knows? Obviously the draft, it comes into play as well. And that's a big talking point later in the year. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. And mentioning that, you probably should keep an eye on all of our Fantasy Bros socials over the next few months. We'll be covering all of the draft and any of those big signings, because we are absolutely pumped for that Oz cricket season. So keep an eye out on the Fantasy Bros socials. So Fantasy Bros AU on your favorite social there.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, cannot wait for this. I'll definitely be keeping a close ear on those international signings who bring so much excitement to the tournament. And that draft just makes that comp even more exciting now as well. I'll be pretty disappointed if Marnus doesn't roll out in the teal of the Brisbane Heat this season. But let's hope that he pens his signature for the Heat nice and quickly. I also hear it won't be long until the GDS boys formally announce the next Global Cricket Championship tournament, which will be held in Pakistan in February, and it will cover the 50-over format. Pakistan has already qualified for this tournament as hosts, obviously, and they'll be joined by the next 7 best nations from the previous tournament. So that'll be Afghanistan, Australia, Bangladesh, England, India, New Zealand, and South Africa. So for those of you that played the Global Cricket Championship just gone, or even last year's tournament, you'll be able to use a lot of those same player cards from those 8 nations. So that's something exciting to look forward to next February.
And just on that, we probably suggest that any of those packs that you haven't opened yet, whether you've won some or you've bought some, don't open them. Hold on to them. Wait until those squads are announced, and GDS, the GDS boys announced that the teams have been updated in the packs. Just keep a hold of them, and you know, I know it's tough. I know you look at them every day, you can see them there, and you get the itchy fingers. You want to crack open a couple of packs, but just hold them, because it'll be worth your while once those squads have been announced.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is jump into your pack section and just see them sitting there. You're so tempted to just click them and open them. Hey, so don't even open it. Play the other comps. If you haven't started playing the rugby league or the Aussie rules version yet, get involved and get them started. Don't open that cricket until you hear a bit more announcement about the Australian cricket tournament. Because absolutely great advice. Opening up those packs now only means you're probably less likely to get some of those players that you can use for those next tournaments. Well, guys, that is a wrap for the GameDay Squad Global Cricket Show. And a very big thank you for those of you tuning in once again. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to GameDay Squad on all of their socials. And make sure you follow us on your favourite socials too, via @FantasyBrosAU.
Thanks, guys.